Good afternoon. Alicia, thanks for being so steadfast in keeping your camera on. That's really it's really nice getting to see you at the top there every week. Not meant to uh, intimidate those who are not wanting to. Like Erwin, I'm very pleased that you have it in hands-free mode while you're driving. That's good. Um, Excellent. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us again this week. Um, we are going to have a week this week that is structured quite similarly to prior weeks. We're going to have a presentation for a few minutes from our public health expert de semaine. This week, it's Richard Heller, who is one of our co-tutors for the course and who will do some more self-introduction as he takes us through his slides in a moment. Just to give you a little preview of the next few weeks. Next week, we're going to have a leader in refugee health globally, who is going to be speaking with us from Lebanon. We'll be giving you some clips of her work in the north of Canada with First Nations to look at this coming week. So you'll get a little introduction to her that way and to thinking about teamwork with her. And then the following week, we'll be visiting with my colleague, Tim Tuccaro, who is a dean at the Faculty of Health Sciences and also led some protests from a tree this last summer, spent a couple weeks as a dean and as an advocate in a tree. And I mentioned to you all that you'd be hearing from him, and he's week after that. And then an extraordinary leader in community health from Stanford University the following week. So we have some exciting weeks queued up. Today, Dr. Heller is going to take us through his thoughts on our topics of the week, and in particular how it applies to an educational model that he's led. We'll break into small groups again. We'll then reconvene at the end with about 10 minutes left to go. And for those of you who are having difficulty with video, not a problem. For those of you who can do video, that's great. All right. Any other procedural things, if you could note them in the chat room, that would be terrific. And we'll respond there or verbally as needed. Dr. Heller, take it away.
Thank you, Erica. Such a pleasure to be here. And I think, Hugo, you're going to start to share the slides. So the session is to do with capacity building. And if you can show us the learning objectives, what we hope to achieve today is to be able to understand the link between workforce capacity needs and the role that education can play in meeting those needs, and then understand the potential of online global education. Of course, the session we're in today is an example of online global education. So I'd like to start with an anecdote. Next slide, please, Hugo. From Irene in Zimbabwe. And she completed an online diploma through People's Uni, which I'll be describing in a little more detail later on. Her dissertation is still pending, so she can get her MPH, but she, as far as the diploma, she said in a letter to me, "You facilitated for me to get my diploma in public health. It's greatly helped me. I managed to get a job in a church which does a lot of humanitarian activities. This season we were faced with COVID-19. I was tasked to coordinate the church response in marginalized communities. I developed a proposal that helped us get a grant to purchase a few things useful for marginalized clinics. The knowledge I acquired from my studies was really helpful in my planning and strategy development. So a couple of points there, that even though she hasn't completed her master's, she's already been able to apply the lessons and develop the leadership role even at that stage. And the next picture is of Irene in the field. She's in the check dress at the back, demonstrating that leaders don't always have to be right up at the front. They can take a backseat role. Next, please. I don't think I need to tell anyone in the audience about Sustainable Development Goals, but I just want to point to two of them that are particularly relevant to what we're talking about. This is SDG 3, to ensure healthy lives and promote well-being, and 3.8, to achieve universal health coverage, and 3.9C, which I'll read out, substantially increase health financing and the recruitment, development, and training and retention of the health workforce. So leading on from that, we get to SDG 4. Sorry, next slide. Before that, sorry, get onto the Scheffler. Thank you. No, sorry, Hugo, back to the quote. Scheffler, in a paper which I'm going to get back to right at the end of this little talk, tells us that to deliver the essential health services required for the universal health coverage target of SDG 3, there will be a need for almost 53 million health workers in 2030 across 165 countries. So a massive goal. So what can education do? SDG 4 on the next slide gives us a target goal: ensure inclusive and equitable quality education and promote lifelong learning opportunities for all. 4.3, by 2030, ensure equal access for all women and men to affordable quality technical, vocational, and tertiary education, including university. So this is where the next slide comes in. Talk about the potential role of online global learning. So the massive effort is required to build this workforce. And the paper that I want to point to by Erica Frank, the leader of this online program on leadership, and I, with a colleague, developed this model and in a paper called Building Public Health Capacity Through Online Global Learning. The main features: online learning using ICT, global context, realizing that global health challenges are relevant to everyone, bidirectional learning between and within students and tutors in low and high income settings, and lifelong learning relevant to the stages of career progression. And NextGenU, who are organizing this whole series with PAHO and People's Uni, are each examples of this, and we point in the paper to those. So the next slide, please, takes us a little bit further into the issue of lifelong learning. So we have this concept of the learning ladder, where you, at the bottom, you learn the theory, and then at the top, you become a leader. So you learn the theory, you develop the skills, you practice independently, you become a trainer, and you become a leader. Of course, as I showed you in the first little anecdote with Irene, you can actually develop leadership at all of those levels. So you can start your leadership activities much earlier as you develop the skills as you go up the ladder. So the next slide describes a People's Uni in a little more detail. There are 18, it's all fully online program, 18 modules. They cover the foundation sciences of public health. They cover public health problems facing populations in low resource settings. There's a dissertation, and it's run the timetable over 2 semesters a year. Each of these modules is supported by a set of volunteers, and we use open education resources so that we can use global best practice in education. And because of use of open education resources and volunteers, it can be offered at very low cost. So each module has a set of open education resources and a narrative to guide the students through the resources, and discussion forums led by expert tutors, assignments, academic credit, and an MPH is accredited and is awarded by our partner, Euclid University. Next, please. Now, here's a screenshot of the map of the city and country of 417 of People's Uni volunteer tutors. Unfortunately, my screenshot cut off where I live, which is down at the bottom right on the east coast of Australia. But you see that we've got a global pattern of volunteer tutors, expert tutors across the globe who've come to help in this enterprise. I note very few in your part of the world, so let's think about whether we can improve on that situation one way or another. Any help will be much appreciated. Next slide, please. As well as just having an MPH program, we have enrolled all the graduates in an alumnus group, and we're encouraging collaborative research. A number of the alumni have also joined as tutors. You would have seen some of their cities on the previous slide. We also have a separate site for free open online courses for continuing professional development, not academic credit. More than 5,000 enrollment, 30 courses, including many which are not usually included in MPH programs. And the exciting development for us is that People's Uni is now merged with NextGenU for sustainability and growth. And this is, as I say, an exciting development for us. We share many of the goals as indicated in the joint paper with Erica, and we're looking forward to many future developments and activities. So the next slide should show the country of 159 MPH graduates, and you see they're clustered largely in Africa, and again, I'm afraid we see a gap in your part of the world, and we'd be very pleased if we could find some way of filling the gap in the Caribbean and in the PAHO region. But of course, we're very proud of this spread of graduates across so many countries. So the next slide, please. I sort of coming to the end, but I just wanted to pick up the point about collaborative research. We don't need, these are 3 papers that have been written by by our graduates as collaborative effort. You see that I'm the first author on one of those, and the difficulty has been translating our graduates into leaders. That has been one of the challenges. People are still in the student mode and find it difficult to take a leadership role. It's one of our challenges for the future as we move from just delivering an MPH program to working with the graduates to improve the health of the population. Next slide shows the first author on the first of those papers, and the second author of the second is Ian, also from Zimbabwe. And the picture is when I went, is from Pretoria from a couple of years ago, when I went to discuss partnerships with the university and other organizations there. Ian, who's one of our graduates, and as shown you as an author and lead author on a couple of the papers, hopped in a bus and traveled 24 hours from Pretoria, from Harare to Pretoria, to join me. And we spent a number of days together going around and talking about People's Union, how to develop partnerships in South Africa. So he is an example of someone who has developed real leadership skills. He subsequently, this picture is not of us wading crocodile-infested waters, but our hotel was cut off by a flash flood and we had to be rescued. So it's not quite as dramatic as it looks. He's gone on to become head of his department in his university. And just to finish it off, I discovered, although I hadn't realized at the time, I discovered only a couple of months ago, that Irene from the first story and Ian from this story are actually sister and brother. Next, and this is really the final slide, which gets back to the discussion of SDG 3 and 4, and to indicate the close relationship between the education system and the health system. So in both education and health system, you have needs, demand, provision, and demand for health workforce and supply of health workforce through the education system. So if the demand is greater than the supply, you have a problem. If the supply is greater than the demand, you have a problem. So it's a delicate balance of making sure that you meet the demand, and of course that the demand is appropriate and the supply is appropriate to the demand. And there's this constant circularity of trying to work out how you meet the demand for the health workforce through the education system. So that's the end of what I wanted to say. And the next slide, what we'd like to do is get you to break into small groups, as we did. Maybe Erica can give us the instructions. You're muted.
Sure, you were headed in exactly the right direction, Richard. So yeah, Hugo is going to break us into 3 groups again in a moment. And we're going to be reviewing the questions that you saw on the last slide, and I've put them into the chat on the right as well, so that you guys can see that. Maybe in formerly British colonies, the chat is on the left. I'm not sure if it sits differently for you in Zoom. And in Richard, it might be backwards. For Richard, it might be backwards below the the equator. So, but the questions are all there. Anyone have any questions about the questions before we leap into our small groups? You'll be with all of us, and we won't be recording the small groups, so we will be taking notes. I hope all of our tutor leaders will be taking careful notes about needs, because this is in some ways an informal Delphic needs assessment too. So any questions? Okay, Hugo, you want to go ahead and break us up into groups, and we're going to reconvene in about half an hour. We'd like to do so, Hugo, if you could set it for like 13 till or so, and then we'll do the usual thing where we come out of small groups and have someone who's reporting. So if you can fairly early on in your small groups choose someone to report back in on these issues, that would be great. Okay. No questions? Okay.
The groups are ready. I will open them now.
Great. Thank you, Hugo. Great. Welcome back, everyone. So we have just a couple minutes to resume our discussion, and then we'll just close out with Hugo. You're giving us an introduction to what will happen over the next week. So if the group reporters could please chime in. Alicia, you want to go first, and then whoever was in Richard's group. Go ahead, Alicia.
Sure. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So our breakout room, we identified some answers to some of the questions in terms of the main public health workforce needs. We identified one major one is project managers. This is because we have many current initiatives that are ongoing, as well as the need for new initiatives. So we need people to be able to focus on strategic development, not only that, but also to, when there's funding available, to be able to manage the finances so that you achieve and ensure success of the projects in public health. Another area where, in terms of workforce needs, there's a need for succession planning, because in many instances, we have the senior experienced persons holding leadership roles, leaving for various reasons, whether it's retirement, resignation, and because there's no succession planning, it leaves a gap. And even if you have younger ones who fill that gap, they may still need guidance, and they may not have the experience and training as the person who left. So this leaves a gap which needs to be filled in terms of the public health workforce. And one of the other main areas we identified was in terms of research management and effectiveness of programs that are ongoing, to allow you to audit and assess the effectiveness of a program and if it should be continued or not. Some of the educational needs that we identified in public health, in terms of capacity building, many areas we have a shortage of trained workforce, and that's due to many reasons, such as the lack of locally trained persons. This then leads to outsourcing. So some of the barriers we have in terms of capacity building is the lack of programs available in needed areas. So there may be training programs available, but not in the areas that we need the most to work on. Cost effectiveness of the programs, as well as the timing in terms of people have regular jobs, so if they need to do training, it has to be at a time which they are able to facilitate that. Some of the other point in terms of barriers to capacity building, you need executive leadership, which identifies the need for training so that they would put things in place that staff can attend the training sessions. And this is where the role of online education comes in. Definitely, it is a useful and important tool with cost effectiveness, increased access, able to reach a wider audience, not just in a particular area, but online you could go worldwide. And some of the design of the programs is very conducive to learning because it gives you the theory as well as puts in the real life application. There are some barriers that you can identify with online education, such as it relies on having access to a device and to Wi-Fi and good connectivity. However, because of the convenience of the timing and the convenience of the accessibility, you could attend a class while you're in a car. It facilitates it. And even with lack of access or poor access, there's asynchronous learning where you can access it afterwards. So these were some of the things that we discussed in our breakout room.
Thank you, Alicia. Could we get a 1 or 2 minute report from whoever was reporter in Richard's group?
That was Gaitre.
Was that you? I'm sorry.
No, that was me. Yes, sorry. My internet is very unstable. Let's start. Okay, all right. So in our group, we had contribution from Trinidad, Tobago, Antigua and Bermuda, Bahamas, and Suriname. So for the public health needs, the group said that integrated team approach and research for clear understanding national policies are very important. Of course, PPEs. We have to understand that it's not only clinical, but also non-clinical. And in the workforce, the amount of staffing and resources needed, the adequate amount of staffing and resources needed is very important. You could employ additional staffing if you have shortage of staff. We had issues with shortage of staff also, and continuous training is important, as of course adequate supply of PPEs. For the training, for the second question, of course, training should be adapted to the new settings. It should be the new normal is an online environment. Information technology is important. New software development, legislation for the use of technology, for example, for security and privacy issues. Research, of course, is very important. For the question 3, for the adaptive way of learning, we have to require different skills, of course. Online education has an important role in public health, and an important integral role in public health. So applying theories, principles learned can be a problem because you are alone in your area, in your own environment, and then you have to apply the theories and the principles. Of course, there are the other benefits. When you can enroll in programs regardless of the cost. The distance is not an issue. Costs are not an issue, but it could be challenging for the older groups opposed to the younger group. I hope I didn't miss anything in Valerie.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, and we are at 1 minute past the hour. So perhaps we could just have a brief report in from Miriam and Hugo's group, and then we can close up with Hugo for a moment. So who's reporting in for you?
Yes, so in Hugo's group, we decided that there would be a need for the admin component of public health workforce to understand actual components of public health. So in other words, the public health workforce needs to understand how the public actually affects their health. We also felt that there is more of a need for training in the understanding of the sociological fundamentals of public health. Project management is needed, education and training of our public health workers to improve certain aspects in public health development, and appreciation to the management of the scarce financial resources that are available. A more computerized system plus a more integrated approach with non-traditional healthcare services. We also felt that there's a need to take the message of public health to the streets to have a more of a more successful reach to, you know, to the public. So their management needs, admin support needs, financial management needs, a need to strengthen the connection between academics and real work. We had a lot. We also need educational needs of the workforce is also important, as well as how do you as a healthcare worker use the data that is available to guide your management of your health. And some challenges were recognized in terms of online learning, such as time management issues, and some advantages would be the benefits in terms of allowing persons better time management, those who can actually you know, leave their work and then have the time at home to engage in online training. And there were a lot of other things, but I know we're short for time, and I think I wasn't the best scribe, so I'll just leave it there.
No, I think these, all three of these reports back in were wonderful. Thank you. Really encouraging in particular to hear, and it's encouraging because of course it reflects my personal prejudices as well as the literature from all of the groups, that having activities that reflect, that are useful for your work, that are actual practical hands-on exercises. It sounds like that was a theme that it certainly came through very clearly in our group, and it sounds like it was something that surfaced as well for you all. Good. All right, we're at 2:04. Hugo, you want to bring us home, and we will see everyone then in a week. Hugo?
Yes, so a very brief reminder, tomorrow is the recommended deadline for the quiz and learning activities of Module 3. The deadlines now are open, but we still recommend you to follow the recommended dates to not accumulate work for the end. The next week we will have Module 4, which is Module 5, which is teamwork and organizational performance. And we will have an invited speaker, Dr. Kristen Johnston. So congratulations for your participation here today, for such rich discussions, and also for your participation in the forum. We are going through all of them and reading them, and we are happy to see how much are you engaging with each other in discussions. So thank you for that, and see you the next class.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.